L'chaim v'racha. L'chaim v'racha. Yantiv v'yantiv. L'chaim v'racha. In Svir Somer, nobody, everyone, you say tomato, I say tomato, but nobody says lag la omer. Everyone says lag ba'omer. How come no one says lag la omer? There's actually an argument whether you're supposed to say ba'omer or la omer. Ashkenazim say la omer, ba'omer, and the Sephardim and Chassidim we say la omer. Some people say the reason why we call it ba'omer on lag ba'omer is because today is the Ramah's yard site. Since it's the Ramah's yard site, you want to honor the Ramah, and he says it's ba'omer, so we say ba'omer. But it says in Sfarim, the reason we specifically called ba'omer is because lag ba'omer is numerically equivalent to Moshe Rabbeinu. So we want to emphasize the connection between today, the anniversary, the passing of Shimon Yochai, and Moshe Rabbeinu. What's the connection between Moshe Rabbeinu and Shimon Yochai? So just on the surface, Shimon Yochai gave us before we get to the surface, just a couple interesting things about the commonality of Lag BaOmer and Moshe Rabbeinu. First of all, the same day of the week, Lag BaOmer is always the same day of the week as the day of the anniversary of passing of Moshe Rabbeinu. Zayin Adar was on Thursday this year, and Lag BaOmer was on Thursday. In Sukkot, it's coming Sukkot, the day of Moshe Rabbeinu's Ushpizin will also be on Thursday. There's always a connection between Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rashbi, and why they connect. Nachamendel, front row seats, the same price as back row seats. So what's the connection to Moshe Rabbeinu and the Shimon Yochai? What does that have to do with us? So Moshe Rabbeinu was the one through whom God gave us the Torah. And Shimon Yochai was the one through whom God revealed the inner dimension of Torah. Just like the day of the giving of the Torah was on the 6th of Sivan, the day of the revelation of the inner dimension of Torah was today on Lag BaOmer. Now why is that important? The Zohar says that there are three things that are bound with each other: the Torah, the Jewish people, and God. The Zohar says when a Jew connects to the external parts of Torah, he connects the more superficial parts of his soul with, so to speak, the more superficial parts of godliness. The way that God is a creator, the way God contracts himself, contracts his life. When a Jew studies the inner dimension of Torah, the Jew goes to the core of Torah, then he connects the inner dimension of his soul with the essence of God. What that means practically is that there's some things that when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? There's some things that you need to have some tough stuff in you to get going. is a phenomena that you can see clearly the power of the inner dimension of Torah. When Stalin came to power and Torah mitzvahs had to go underground, who were the only guys that kept the Torah underground? Guys who were studying the inner dimension of Torah. Everybody else didn't have underground schools. Only ones who did this were the people that were dedicated and learned and studied the inner dimension of Torah. So that also tells us about now any challenge we have in our own personal life. The way we connect to those challenges is by studying the inner dimension of Torah, which unlocks our connection to the essence of Hashem. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai revealed this Torah throughout his life. But whatever he revealed throughout his life didn't come close to what he revealed today. In fact, it says whatever he revealed throughout his life was nothing compared to what he revealed today. Today was the main revelation of the inner dimension of Torah. On the day...
Did he die on this day?
Yeah. But it's interesting to say the word die.
Yes.
Because, tell you why, someone asked me the other day, how is it possible people are asking blessings from Shimon Bar Yochai, people ask blessings from the Rebbe? Doesn't it say in the Gemara, you're not supposed to seek out those who passed away and ask blessings from them? So, it's a topic, I'm not going to get into the whole topic now, but I just wanted to address this from the perspective of the inner dimension of Torah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he addresses this question in the Zohar, and he addresses it in a way that just is characteristic for the inner dimension of Torah. The inner dimension of Torah, the Rashbi said about the Zohar, about the inner dimension of Torah, he said it's a place where there's no questions, a place where there's no argument. So how does he address the question, how are you able to ask a blessing from a tzaddik who has passed away? He says, what do you mean passed away? Dead? They're really alive. That's the people who are really alive. And he explains what the Gemara means according to the inner dimension of Torah, but he says, you have to know what life is. There, of course, they're alive. You're allowed to ask a tzaddik for a blessing. He's truly alive. So I'm not getting into the subject, maybe another time, but the point is that the inner dimension of Torah is a place where there are no questions, a place where everything is clear. You see this also by the titles the Zohar gives for every teaching. As Yeshua was mentioning today, he's bringing earlier today, Yeshua said in the Zohar, whenever the Zohar introduces a teaching, it says, Toch Hazi, come and see. How does the Gemara introduce the teaching? Toshma, come and hear. Because the Zohar is a part of Torah where godliness, you could see it. It's all about Hashem. The Gemara, Hashem is more in the background. That's why, although the title we usually give for the Zohar is the hidden part of Torah, really the Gemara is the hidden part of Torah. And although the Gemara is usually called the revealed part of the Zohar is called the hidden and the Gemara is called the revealed, really it's the other way around. Which part of Torah do you see God more? You see God more in the hidden part of Torah. Which part of Torah is God more in the background? Where is God hiding more in the revealed part of Torah? It's interesting, when an Ashkenazi Jew comes into a synagogue and he missed the Torah reading, he says, did you guys hear the Torah reading yet? Did you do Kriya yet? Did you hear the Torah? What does a Sephardic Jew say when he walks into a shul? I didn't make this up, I've seen this. Did you see the Torah yet? Did you see Torah? I thought it was just a way of speaking until I saw this guy come in this shul and he already did Hagbah and Glila. He opened it up. I just wanted to see the Torah. Anyways, so there is something about the Zohar's phraseology of come and see, which is indicative of what the inner dimension of Torah is about. It's a place where godliness is revealed. It's a dimension of Torah where there are no questions. That's why the Torah alludes to Lag BaOmer with the following verse. The Torah alludes to Lag BaOmer in two places. One of them is Eid Hagal Hazeh. It says by Yaakov and Lavan that Yaakov was running away from Lavan. Lavan chases after Yaakov, and Yaakov and Lavan agreed to a peace treaty. Lavan will not attack Yaakov, but as a sign of the peace treaty, they gather some stones together as a monument, as a marker that no one should pass over this. This army over here, you're over there. So that's the words the Torah uses are Eid Hagal Hazev, Eid HaMatzeva. The word Gal is the same letters as Lag BaOmer. There's something about that story that tells us about Lag BaOmer. How does that story tell us about Lag BaOmer? They say a story about the Alter Rebbe. I don't know if the story is true, but the idea behind the story is true. Alter Rebbe was once talking to another tzaddik. He asked the Alter Rebbe, I realize that your teaching is a different level, something different about it. What's the difference between us and you? So the Alter Rebbe responded that there is a shepherd who guards the sheep. He tries to take care of the sheep. But if a wolf comes in to attack the sheep, he will do everything he can to stop it. What happens if the wolf gets by him and puts his teeth onto a sheep's neck? Then the shepherd can't do anything. But then there's a devoted shepherd that even if the wolf goes in, and even if the wolf puts his teeth into and sinks his teeth in the sheep's neck, the shepherd will hit the wolf and pull the wolf's face and teeth off the sheep to save the sheep's life. He won't give up. So on the surface, it sounds like the Alter Rebbe is saying that he cares about every Jew, but it means more than that. It means that the Alter Rebbe's teachings in Chassidus, the inner dimension of Torah, gives us an ability to overcome a scenario where the wolf, the Yetzer Hara, has sunk its teeth into our neck already, where we're in trouble. There's some people think you should study the inner dimension of Torah when you reach 40, reach a higher level. I'm already 40. I figured out that the higher level doesn't happen to everybody. Anyways, but the truth is that you have the inner dimension of Torah was given to us to withstand challenges that each of us have. It wasn't given to holy people. Chassidim give an analogy of gold. Gold may be meant for using in the temple. Gold may be used for jewelry. But if you have a broom and you don't have anything to use for the broom, gold will work too. So it could be the inner dimension of Torah isn't meant to heal our negative character traits, our obnoxiousness and our selfishness and our all kinds of stuff, but it works for that. In fact, God gave it to our generation because of the challenges that we had, the generations before didn't have. Getting back to Yaakov. Yaakov makes a treaty with Lavan, and he says, I'm making a treaty, I'm staying in my place, you're going in your place. Spiritually, Lavan represents the material world, and Yaakov represents the spiritual world. Yaakov is a soul, and he has to go from the spiritual world to the physical world. But when you go there, you don't want to get affected by the wolves. So what do? You make a separation. There's a space of the physical world, and there's your space, and they're separate. You have to go to the physical world, but you can't get affected by it. What allows you not to be affected by it? What gives you that strength? Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is the day that Hashem gave us the tool, the antidote for dealing with the Lavans of the world. You know those subliminal messages commercials they used to have? Uh-huh. So I don't know exactly the words that were used in the Chanukah Ma'amer Tashin and Beis, but the idea that the way I understood is that every word of Chassidus has a subliminal message. Every word you study in the inner dimension of Torah has a subtext, has an atmosphere, has something it's telling you beyond the information. What does the inner dimension of Torah say? Every single word of it, Ein Od Milvadei. There's nothing besides God. That's the subtext of the inner dimension of Torah. So when you're dealing with the physical world, what allows you to have the clarity that you're not alone and God's with you? It's the inner dimension of Torah. The inner dimension of Torah tells you and inspires you to realize it releases the inner dimension of your soul and also gives you that sense, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, Ein Il Milvadei, there's nothing besides God. There's three things your friends will tell you. If you're a Jew who cares about other Jews and you try to inspire other Jews, there are three things your friends will tell you. The first thing your friends will tell you is, it's nice to try to inspire people, but you have to pick your audience carefully. You can't go over to people who say, I don't believe. You believe, they don't believe. You have no commonality. So don't try to inspire anybody you can, but if someone says, I don't believe, the conversation is over. Your friends will also tell you, there are some people which are just into something. They have an addiction, they have a passion for something. You might be able to help people, but you can't help somebody who has a very strong passion, obsession, addiction to something. You can help them with other things maybe, but you can't break someone away from a very strong, deep passion or addiction. The third thing your friends will tell you is, some people, how do we say, ilapala, loco. Some people, they're just into such low things, that the guy is no longer on the radar of being able to be reached. The guy has done something so terrible, there's no way to reach this person. That's what your friends will tell you. But the Torah tells us in this week's Torah portion that it has a different opinion. The beginning of this week's Torah portion talks about the laws of a Kohen. Torah says a Kohen cannot enter a cemetery. Not only could a Kohen not enter a cemetery, a Kohen has to tell his children not to go to a cemetery. The word the Torah uses for children actually is ketanim. Ketanim means those who know less. Those who know more should tell those who know less not to go to a cemetery. What's a cemetery? A cemetery is nothing. There's nothing in our five senses that tells us anything wrong with a cemetery. Why can't the Kohen go to a cemetery? We believe that there's something in the cemetery that affects the holiness of the soul of a Kohen. Not something we can see, not something we can understand. There's something there that Kohanim don't fit with. So the Torah is telling us, those who say, I don't believe, you have to reach out to them also. The Torah said, those who say, I don't believe, I don't know about this, I can go to a cemetery. The Torah says, no, you have to reach out to that person also. There's another place the Torah tells us that those who know more have to help those who know less. The second place the Torah tells us this law is about the laws of blood. Talmud says that the Jewish people are not allowed to eat blood. Not only that, but although the Jewish people at that time, the Torah was given, loved blood. It was delicious. That was a delicacy. So although they love blood, the Torah says, those who know more have to help those who know less and tell them that they also cannot have blood. Meaning those who don't think there's anything wrong with it, and they're attached to it, and they're obsessed with it, which blood represents also passion. So you would think the person has passion, they're obsessed with something, you can't help that person. The Torah says no. That even in regards to blood, those who know more have to help those who aren't on that level yet. What about those who are loco, ilapala, nobody home? So the Torah says a third time that those who know more have to help those who know less. When is that? What's the third time? Laws of reptiles. It's forbidden for a Jew to eat a reptile. So what kind of person eats a reptile anyways? Unless you were brought up with it in Japan or something. No one eats reptiles. Why do we eat a reptile? Eat a reptile because the Talmud says a person is disgusted by a reptile. Only someone something's wrong with that person, wrong with their taste buds, wrong with their perspective on life. Who knows what's wrong with them? They're into the reptiles. So you would think, okay, this person, the reptile guy, let somebody else talk to him. I don't want that job. I remember when I was visiting prison, I didn't want to know what people's crimes were. I wanted to look at them as a fellow Jew, as a brother. And if I know their crime, I might judge them and not care for them as. So one time the imam who was to bring me around the prison, it was literally every week was like walked out of a joke. It was me, the imam, and the minister. We walked together. it was like one of those jokes. So
walking into a bar.
Yeah, walking to a prison. Oh, it wasn't fun to hear the minister's prayers. Anyways, so the imam, he felt it was just kind to tell me that this Jew who wants to see me, who is in solitary confinement, he's traveled internationally to molest children. That's why he's here in this federal prison. So and he wants to see you now. So do you want to talk to him? So the Torah tells us that even someone who eats reptiles, even someone who has a very low Yetzer Hara, a very low illness, the Torah says those who know more have to help those who know less. Okay, that's what you're supposed to do. Now, how many mitzvahs do we have? There's 613. There's a lot of them. So why not get to that mitzvah a little bit later? That mitzvah go a little later. Why is there gravitate to that mitzvah? There's many mitzvahs. There are a lot of people that can use your help, that you could reach out to, and they will be appreciated, that aren't eating reptiles, not drinking blood, and they say that they do believe in general. There's some commonality. Why reach out to the ones that are the hardest? So the Torah says, I remember I asked Rabbi Heshke Dubravsky Ol V'Sholem, I said, what should I do with this guy in the solitary? Yeah, let him have Teach him how to read Hebrew. He should say Psalms. He's Jewish. If you're able to help me, you have to help him. That's what he told. That's what he told me. He's older chassid, older and wiser than me. Let him avart. Teach him how to read Hebrew. Should say avart. Teach him how to say Psalms. He's still your brother. The point is, you might say, why do I have to help that person? There's many other people that I need to help. So the Torah says, those who know more should give light to those who know less. But the Torah doesn't say it that way. It says, how do those who know more get light? How do you get more light yourself? The Bishum Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, lahazir. How do you get to the light? How do you reach light? The only way you could reach light is alaktanim. It's only by influencing those who are far less than you. And in fact, specifically the ones that are the farthest from your circle, the ones that you would think are the most last person you want to talk to, that's how you receive the most. That's the ones that you need to reach out to the first, not for their benefit, for your benefit. The ones who know more have to help those who know less, for them to receive their own light. So this is.
So how do they do it without getting influenced?
So Bishum Bar Yochai said the illusion of Lag BaOmer is in the mound between Yaakov and Lavan. The mound represents that what gives you the appropriate balance between trying to influence someone else and not being influenced by them is the inner dimension of Torah, which has a message of nothing besides Hashem. But what was the mound made out of? The mound was made out of stones, which means it's not enough just to learn and understand, and now you have a rich perspective. It was made out of stones. Stones represent the inanimate. The stone of Lag BaOmer means that the sphere of last night was Hod Shebahod. What's Hod Shebahod mean? What's Hod mean? Hod means to submit yourself to something. Hod means you acknowledge this is true. Your mind says it's not true. Your heart says it's not true. Your feet say it's not true. You say it's not true, and so if it looks like a fish and it smells like a fish, it must be a fish. No, Hod says no. I believe in the truth. There's a truth that's not beyond what I see. This is not the way it looks. This is nothing besides Hashem. Ein Mavadeh. There's a story that the previous Rebbe said, if you hear the story, it means you. If you hear the story, he's talking to you. Okay, so here's the story. Rabbi Yamin Klatzker, Al V'Shalom, Chassidus Al Rebbe, he was once doing business with another Jew. The guy told him, I need to take care of something, wait here for a few minutes. So when he went to wait, when Rabbi Yamin Klatzker was left alone, he was really into studying the inner dimension of Torah. So he started to meditate on the Maimer. And he meditated for several hours. And the guy came back to him and he's like, hey, I know you're into this stuff, but business is business. Why are you going to study and meditate now? Now it's time for business. Yamin Klatzker said, if when we say Shema Yisrael, we think about business, when we do business, we can think about Shema Yisrael. That's a story. And the Frierdiker Rebbe leaps out of the pages and tells you, if you heard this story, he means you. This is a story that you have to take to heart. So, Hoid Sheba Hoid means, what's Hoid mean? Hoid means that even though you're involved in the most physical thing, you acknowledge the truth that there's nothing besides Hashem. You acknowledge that there's a truth. What's Hoid Sheba Hoid mean? You don't even sense you're supposed to. Chachman Hoid means that your logic says I should acknowledge it's true, although it doesn't feel right. Hoid Sheba Hoid means I acknowledge that I'm supposed to acknowledge that there's a truth. I can't even look the truth in the eyes and say this is the truth. I submit myself to acknowledging that there is a truth that I don't feel. I submit myself that I need to submit myself. It's a very dark place. It's a place where you don't feel, you don't understand, you say this is the truth. There's a way to count the spheres above to below and below to above, which means that Hoid Sheba Hoid is also the sphere of Teferes Sheb Teferes. Without getting too Kabbalistic, Teferes Sheb Teferes is the opposite of Hoid Sheba Hoid. Teferes Sheb Teferes means the beauty of beauty, the greatest light, the greatest revelation. So the key to getting the greatest revelation is by having that submission. You submit yourself. This is the truth. You don't. So you need to be like a rock, like the stones that Yaakov made the mound out of. You need to have that submission. You need to have Hoid Sheba Hoid. If your mind says no and your heart says no, you still have to have like, okay, this is what Hashem wants. Doesn't feel right, doesn't seem right, but you put yourself aside for what Hashem wants you to do, and that connects you to the beauty of beauty. So in short, today is the day of Shem Yochai. Today is the day when Rabbi Shimon Yochai said, with one bond, I've been bound with God my whole life. Said Rabbi Shimon Yochai. And I never understood the pasuk, my soul glories in the Lord. B'Hashem tesal nafshi. I never understood this verse. I always looked at this verse. I was always connected with God. I never understood this pasuk. But now Rishon Yochai said on the day of his passing, now I know what this verse means. My soul is inflamed with him. My soul is one with him. My soul cleaves to him. That's what Rishon Yochai said on Lag BaOmer. And although we're not anywhere near that level, today is Lag BaOmer, and we're empowered to take something, the inner dimension of Torah, take it inside, and to get some of that energy, some of that inner dimension of Torah, to give us, connect the inner dimension of our soul, and that enables us to look at other Jews and see the inner dimension in them, even when they look like they're into the creepy callies, into the blood, and they have no faith, or whatever it looks like. But today's day, the Rishon Yochai empowers us. The Rishon Yochai's light envelops the entire world, envelops every single Jew. That's why you see a phenomena. Every Jew celebrates Lag BaOmer. Every Jew in Eretz Yisrael, they have days of vacation for not religious schools. One of the days of vacation for all schools is Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is a day of one person, the day of Rishon Yochai. Why? It's not Passover, it's not Purim, it's not Sukkot, it's not a national holiday, but it is a national holiday. Because the light of Rishon Yochai it touches the depth of every Jewish neshama, and it is the light of Mashiach.
Yeah. What's Hod Shabbat?
Hod Shabbat means to submit yourself, to acknowledge that you're supposed to acknowledge that there's a truth. Hod means to acknowledge that there's a truth.
A truth?
There is that the truth is truth. Hod Shabbat means I'm not face to face with the truth. I don't feel the truth, but I acknowledge that I should acknowledge that this is truth. That truth is truth. I should acknowledge that truth is truth. I'm not up to that level yet, but I should acknowledge that truth is truth. So Rishon Yochai's light began to shine on Lag BaOmer. Rishon Yochai, when he came out of the cave after 12 years, famously the Talmud says that he saw people working. Like, what are these people working? How can anybody work? What about Torah? And fire destroyed the place he was looking at. So God said, "You're destroying my world." Back in the cave. After the year in the cave, he comes out of the cave. And he came out of the cave, he saw a guy carrying 2 myrtles. And it was Friday afternoon, right before Shabbos. He said, "What's with the 2 myrtles? This is in honor of Shabbos. I want to have a good fragrance in my home. Why 2 myrtles? Why not 1? He said, "Well, the Torah says, remember the Shabbos and guard the Shabbos. I have 2, one for Zachar, one for Shomer." Rishon Yochai was so impressed how precious your children are, how precious the mitzvahs are to your children, he said to God. The Rebbe said at that moment, the light of Mashiach began to come into the world. At that moment, Rishon Yochai was able to come into the world, his light was able to envelop the world. That's the light of Mashiach. So bottom line is, my dear friends, today is a day the Eibish's light, the light of Rishon Yochai, the light of Yechish Menefesh shines in each of us. We're empowered to connect to something of this. We need to take it home and bring it to other people. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha. Rabbi Yeshav Shnas Hatzlacha, Begashus Ruchnius, Abka Zakan Al Yod, l'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha. Hinei matoim umanoim Shem Alutov Achim Gam Yochad Hinei matoim umanoim Sheves Achim Gam Hello Adadada Yadadayam Tididayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayayay Sheves achim gam yocham Hinei matoim umanoim Sheves achim gam yocham Adonai Adonai Ay 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 na 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 ay 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 na 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 The Talmud says that the world needed rain once. And there's no rain. The old students of Shema Yochai, the top students, came to Shema Yochai and they said, Rebbe, we need rain. So instead of praying for rain, he started explaining the verse, how good and how pleasant, how sweet it is when brothers sit together. And so as soon as he started expounding the verse, rain came down. Rain is a blessing. Rain represents all blessings. I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way. That's why the Talmud says that the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, when he enters the Holy of Holies, one of the prayers he says is, God, don't listen to people who are traveling and don't want rain, because we don't always feel the blessing of rain. But rain represents a great blessing. Today my cousin got married tonight, and it was plotted by their chuppah. It rained like I never saw, like a legendary chuppah. Anyways, should we say l'chaim for the chas and kala? So they needed rain. He said the verse, and the rain came down. 4 questions. Now I know it's not Passover, but I only answer 4 questions. We heard this story. What does it mean for us? Question number 1. Question number 2 is, Shema Yochai cares about people. When he came out of the cave, he wanted to help the world. How come the world needs rain? Someone has to tell him, the world needs rain. How come he's not coming and saying, the world needs rain? Question number 3. Rabbi Shema Yochai's students, pardon the expression, but they were what people will call today shlamazels. They were shlamazels, meaning they didn't work, they didn't have jobs, they just studied Torah, and they studied Torah all day. That's all they did. So they're the last people that need rain. They were able to do that because of God's miracles. Rabbi Shema Yochai said that you have to study Torah all day and not work. Not work at all. They study Torah all day. Rabbi Shmuel told Rabbi Shema Yochai, well, that's not what people can do. People need to work too. And he said they should work a lot and study Torah a little bit. And the Talmud says many people tried to do what Rabbi Shmuel said and it worked. Many people tried to do what Rabbi Shimon said and it didn't work. But some people did work. Which people? People which are on his level. People which are on his level. I want to give a big parenthesis over here, advertisement. Rabbi Shimon Yochai what was unique about his students? Torah was his profession. Torah was his thing. Although that's not something that we could do, that's something that only Rabbi Shimon Yochai students could do, but there's something about that we could do, and we have to do. Rabbi Shimon Yochai took his students once, who were very poor, he took them once to a valley. And he said, Valley, valley, be full of gold coins. No sooner had he uttered those words, and the valley became full of gold coins. So his students were about to take the gold coins. Rabbi Shimon Yochai says, anybody who takes is taking from their world to come. In other words, on the surface he was saying was, you're losing your world to come. Don't do that. It's not a good idea. That's the surface of the story. But there's a deeper meaning of the story. Shimon Yochai's deeper meaning of that story is like this. What's a student of Shimon Yochai? A student of Shimon Yochai is somebody, when he studies Torah, it's like Shabbat. It's like Shabbos. You don't answer the phone. That's all you're doing. That's what you're doing, just studying Torah. That's Torah can't be your profession all day, but when you are studying Torah, that's a moment with God. It's an intimate moment. That moment that you decide, not just today you decide, but you have a set time daily to study Torah. The time you set aside to study Torah has to be like it's Shabbos. But a person might say, 1 second, are you paying the bills, Rabbi? You're not paying the bills. You want me to pay the bills? I'm responsible for my business. So there are clients I press decline when they call. There are emails that I press archive. But there are pressing calls that I can get that it's my business, I'm responsible. So I can never really throw away the keys. I can never really stop studying Torah. I never really stop to study Torah completely because I'm responsible. So Shimon Yochai told the students, you should know something. If you become my student, and if you have a set time to study Torah, and that's what you're doing, you should know that there's a blessing in your business. What kind of blessing is in your business? The blessing is that not only do you have a natural blessing, not only is there a natural result of what you're doing, you plant the seed and something grows, but there's coins from the world to come in your business. In other words, how do you get coins from the world to come? How do you get miraculous blessing in your business? It's by setting aside time to study Torah. The Rebbe actually used the words that every moment that you spend studying Torah brings hours of success in business. So it's not that you're detracting from your business by studying Torah. It's actually you're working on your business while you're studying Torah. Your study of Torah adds to your business. You vouch for that. So the point is that the Shimon Yochai students were totally immersed in the study of Torah. They had nothing to do with the physical world. And the Jews all needed rain. The farmers needed rain. Everybody needed rain. How come it was specifically his students that were the ones that asked for rain? Question number 2. Question number 3 is, okay, he needs to bring the rain down. How come he just says how good and how pleasant and sweet it is that brothers to sit together? What does that have to do with rain? He wants rain to come down. So what does that have to do with rain? And what is the message for us? So in short, the word in Hebrew for ma, what, is connected to the sphere of Chachma. It's connected to the revelation of godliness in the world of Atzilus called Chachma. Anybody still listening? Okay, there's ma toiv. There are 10 divine attributes in this high spiritual world. The first is called wisdom. So ma toiv means that the godliness is revealed in toiv and goodness and chachma. Ma noi means godliness is revealed in bina. Sheves achim, brothers sit together, means godliness is revealed in the midas of Atzilus. Gam yochad means godliness is revealed in malchus. In short, all unity that happens in this world begins with the unity in the higher worlds. So in order to effect unity in this world, between the heaven and earth, between the giver and the receiver, he had to create unity in the higher worlds. And therefore he spoke about the unity of the divine attributes. But in order for that to happen, he had to connect to a higher light of God, an infinite light of God. What allowed him to connect to the infinite light of God? His students coming to him. His students coming to him and say, we want to receive from you. We want to learn from you. That gave Rabbi Shimon Yochai an additional light of God that allowed him to fuse together all the spheres of Atzilus and to fuse together the higher worlds and the lower worlds. What that means practically is like this. The Baal Shem Tov was once praying. While he was praying, his students were waiting for him to finish praying. But he wasn't finishing. And they were hungry. And there's no hamburgers left. There's one hamburger left. No? Anyways, so his students are waiting for him to finish praying. They're hungry. They said, you know what? He's up to Vayivarach Davar or something. He's up to the beginning of davening. Let's go home. Let's eat. We'll come back. He'll still be in the middle of praying. You won't even notice. They go home, and as they come back, Rosh Hashanah is finished praying already, and he's on the way home. And they're like, what happened? How do you finish so fast? So Rosh Hashanah gave the following analogy. There was once a hunter, and the hunter went to find a bird. The bird was in a tree. In order to get to that bird, he had to climb higher and higher in the tree, but he couldn't reach. So his friends stood on top of each other until he was able to get higher and higher to get to the bird. So Baal Shem Tov said, in order for me to do what I need to do when I pray, to reach where I need to reach, I need my students with me. My students being there with me is something that gives me something. Similarly, Rosh Yochai needed his students to go and ask him for rain, to give him the higher light of that closeness. The students were with him and close to him, that added something, so to speak, to Rosh Yochai, and that allowed him to bring down what he needed to bring down. That means practically, also, for us, that there's something about writing a letter to the Rebbe. There's something about asking her for a bracha. The Rebbe knows. The Rebbe is a tzaddik. The Rebbe knows. But there's something about that closeness that you have by writing a letter to the Rebbe that, so to speak, brings a blessing, that adds something. It adds something, so to speak, to the pipelines, the divine pipelines of Ma Tov and Ma Noyim, allows the blessing to come down. So if you haven't had a chance, today's Lag B'Omer. If you haven't had a chance to write a letter to the Rebbe yet, today would be a great day to do it. Ask for a bracha. The Zohar says, from Pesach Sheni the whole week, the doors of heaven are opened, especially today, day of Lag B'Omer. It says for 7 days. Sir. The Zohar says there's an announcement on Pesach Sheni. The doors are open for 7 days. Fire sale. So whatever needs to be accomplished, each of us has different brachas we need to bring down. People would wait a whole year for Lag B'Omer for the special blessings of today. It's a special time. Let's rain together. To bring the rain down, we've got to get together. And you got to get together with Avis Yisrael to bring the brachas down. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha. Hine matoi v'uma Reb Hessel, was machst du? Sheves achim gam yochar Hine matoi v'uma noim Sheves achim gam yochar Araraya Yaralamam Tiraya Yananam Oh ya Yananam Tiraya Yananam Oh ya Yananam Mama Gam yochar Hinei matoi v'umadoyim Sheves achim gam yochar Amam Tiraya Yananana
You have to say these special.
I thought you asked me for the Wi-Fi.